and let's talk about how you get your adult child to talk to you. And this is a part of our continuing conversations, our continuing talks, which is, I don't know if we'll call it a series, but it's kind of turning into one, and it's on connection, right? It's a point that I make so many times, and this is a very general term, but for most everyone, one of the reasons why things aren't moving forward is because the connection is not there anymore. You're not connected with your young adult, and therefore you really can't move forward with all these other things. And there's a lot of advice, and some of it's good, right? Good techniques, good boundaries, good systems, uh, but none of it works because you've lost that connection, right? And so we've been talking about that. Feel free to look back at some of our other videos, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But just more specific to how do you get your adult child to talk to you when they're not talking to you? You're not alone as a parent, right? And I'm trying to emphasize that in the fact that so many parents are saying the same thing. And I've absolutely experienced that in my work with families. That's many times why families come to me as a therapist. They want to work with me is because they no longer have been able to talk about what's going on. They haven't been able to come together and work towards a solution. So parents are feeling shut out. They're feeling helpless. They're feeling like nothing works. And they want to know why, but more importantly, they want to know how. How do we connect? So that's what we're going to talk about here right now. First point, uh, most of this behavior, the reason they're not talking, it's not defiance or laziness, it's avoidance, right? They are actively avoiding having these conversations. And really, it's mainly either about anxiety or shame, right? They're avoiding feeling shame, they're avoiding feeling anxiety. So, what does that look like, right? They're avoiding shame, meaning I'm flawed, I'm worthless, I'm broken, something with me is screwed up, and I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to face that anymore. They're having tremendous amounts of shame. They've been rejected, they've tried things and it hasn't worked out. Maybe they've been bullied and they've had a lot of difficult times and just things have failed, whatever it is, right? They have this really strong sense of shame and they don't know how to push by. So they're avoiding that shame or anxiety, right? Which in general, right, there's a lot of different ways someone can be anxious, but the general idea behind anxiety is something bad is going to happen, right? I'm going to get embarrassed. Maybe I'm going to fail. I'm not going to be able to handle it. They're so worried. They're scared. They're anxious, and they it's overwhelming, right? And they don't want to deal with it, so they avoid, and that is a lot of what's going on. It's avoidance, right? And so, right from the beginning, I want you to take have some understanding as a parent that this isn't personal. I want to really hone in on that point, right? Your child's avoidance isn't personal. They might be saying mean things at you. They might be trying to, insult you, or, it seems like an attack on you, or it seems to be about you. But it's really about that avoidance. They don't want to deal with things. And sometimes being rude or attacking you or putting all of their fear and just angst on you is easier than dealing with what's going on inside of them, right? And sometimes it's simple, right? They know they can get you to back off or shut down or even blow up, and it shifts to something else if they take a inappropriate tactic. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's okay, but that's still more about the avoidance. Um, so let's talk about why these conversations break down. And there's many different possibilities, but you're probably in some of these categories, right? And I'm not bringing shame. This group is not about shame. It's not about blame. It's about growth. It's about learning. It's about support. But I want you to listen. One of the things that I see in conversations and why they break down is one, they're trying to avoid, right? They're really trying to avoid their feelings and their situations. So they know if they talk to you that it's going to lead to change, right? Or it's going to lead to another bad interaction. And so they just don't want to deal with it. It's like the most obvious thing they're avoiding. They don't want to deal with it. But sometimes, and this is a lot of the time, I find that families have conversations when things are hot or they're relevant. So they did that thing or they didn't do that thing, right? They didn't clean up one more time or they didn't get that job that they promised or they didn't follow through on whatever it is. And you're hot, you're upset, right? And so you're hot and they're disappointed. The emotions are big. And in that moment, it's not a good time to talk. In fact, that's probably the worst time to talk because they're worked up, you're worked up, or maybe you're really worried about what they're doing, right? You're anxious and you're compelled to talk to them right now, but they're too upset, right? And so those are really bad times to talk because they create a pattern of unsuccessful conversations. And that's something else to think about, right? Most of you who are in this situation, there have been 1,001 attempts to talk that have not worked. They have ended the same way in a shutdown, in an argument, in promises that are made just to get the conversation over and then they're not followed through with because your kid doesn't have the skills or know how to handle the situation or they're overwhelmed. And so it gets back into here we are talking again. And it's conversation after conversation after conversation that breaks down. And so what does that do? It erodes everybody's trust, everyone's belief that we can have a successful conversation, right? And so it's this idea of like, why would I talk to you? Because it's only going to end up in an argument. It's only going to end up in me feeling like a failure. It's only going to end up with you worried or you trying to control me or whatever the pattern is, right? And it happens so many times that as parents, you probably don't even like, is this even going to matter? Is this even going to work? Right? And so that pattern puts this just negative belief, lack of trust in that it's even possible. So we don't want to talk when it gets to that place. And your child is not wanting to talk to you because of that pattern. There's another pattern that causes a breakdown. It's the internal pattern that your child has, right? It's their internal belief of, I'm not good enough, or something bad's going to happen. I can't do this. I don't have what it takes. I'm just going to fail. I'm just going to be a loser again. I'm going to just, yeah, it's going to be bad, right? And so inside of themselves, they don't believe they can do it. And if you put all that stuff in, right, together, and a lot of times it does come together, you're talking at the wrong time. Everyone's hot, everyone's upset, everyone's anxious, big emotions. You've had so many failed conversations that no one really believes that this is going to matter or this is going to work. And then you have an adult child who is feeling anxious or ashamed and they don't believe in themselves. They don't know what to do anymore and they don't want to talk about it. And those patterns can be really ingrained and really intense, some really strong beliefs. And that is a lot of what breaks down. And so we want to shift away from those kinds of conversations. Um, and this is kind of a what not to do, but it's leading to what to do. It's another mistake that I see very commonly in attempts to talk that things break down and lead to these patterns. It's parents and even the young adult who get focused on fixing the behavior rather than what's going on inside of them, right? And so the conversation is about You need to get a job. You need to clean up. You need to stop gaming all the time. You need to stop hanging out with those friends. You need to stop being irresponsible. Start taking care of things. And the belief is if you start doing these things, make these changes, the whole situation improves. Um, but that conversation often fails because there's not trust, there's not connection, and just all the points I brought up before, right? You're smacking directly into their fear and their anxiety, their shame, their belief that they can't do it, they're not good enough. And sometimes the young adults do that. I see that where they've kind of conditioned themselves in the conversation to, and this isn't all of them, but some of them, okay, here's the change I'm going to make. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. And they mean it and they want it, but it doesn't work out. And the reason it doesn't work out is because they're not addressing why they get stuck in that tough moment. We talked a lot about that last week, about talking with them of like, okay, when it's actually time to do something, what's going through your mind? What causes it to stop or to break down? And understanding that experience. It's a very good question. Um, but uh, we want to have a conversation that is about understanding the emotional experience, right? We want to move from these like high pressured, everyone upset conversations to what's going on. Let me give you an example. This happened just the other day. I was talking, it was a session, and I had a parent and their son in the room. And the mother, well, this was after the session, she came to me and she said, okay, we've had meetings and he's had talks with educators and mentors and other people in the family with us, and he won't talk to anyone. He just shuts down and gives one word answers, and we get nothing. And he comes into this room and he just opens up and he talks and he talks and he talks and he's telling you all this stuff. He's like, how did you get him to talk so much? And I pointed out to her very quickly. I said, all those other conversations with all those other people were about him changing his behavior. I talked to him about how he was feeling. I quickly identified that he was overwhelmed. He was completely overwhelmed by everything that was going on, all the change that was happening, and not believing that he could handle it and it was going to fall apart. So I talked to him like, you're really overwhelmed, right? You're really freaked out by all this stuff. And he's like, I am, right? And then I was like, well, tell me, why are you overwhelmed? What do you worry about? He's like, I'm worried that this person's going to want this from me, and then I'm going to screw up over here, and then I'm not going to be able to handle this. Honestly, a lot of what he was saying was irrational. The logic was, but the emotion was real. This guy was just overwhelmed with everything that was happening. And so we talked about the fact that he was overwhelmed and why, and what his worries were, and what his fears were. We did not talk at all in that conversation about fixing things or how he was going to make changes. It was completely a connecting conversation. And the sense that I got from this young man was, uh, finally, someone is listening to me. Finally, someone is getting what I am freaking out about, and they're not trying to change me. They're not judging me. They really want to know what's going on. And that's a lot of what I'm talking about. It's it's basically uh, making it clear that this is not a conversation about change. This is not a conversation about you having to fix something and all that. This is a conversation about what's going on with you, what you're experiencing. It's an understanding conversation. And that's what you want to do. Now, obviously, change has to come, but not until there's connection. And connection is being able to know the heart, the mind of your child, what they're going through, and being able to connect on, I care about you. I, I I'm working to understand what you're going through. I want to I want to have that connection with you. So yeah, so important. Yeah, I'll say this. But many times I see parents, they get this logical idea. They understand the concept. They're like, okay, let me understand what's going on with you. But then they get pulled back into that pattern. It's like a parent who's they finally get their child to open up, and they say, you know what, mom, dad, I'm really afraid. I love cars so much, and I want to get that job working with cars, but I'm worried that I'm going to fail and I'm going to screw up and I'm going to ruin it and I'm going to get fired and it's just going to be a mess. And that's what's going on. That's why I don't want to try to get a job. And the parents like, oh, now we understand something. Let's fix this. You know what? Instead of getting your first job with working with cars, why don't you work with food service instead? And then you can get used to working, and you can they go right back into fixing, right? They have the right heart, but they didn't sit with that emotion. They didn't sit with understanding. They jumped right into problem solving. You almost want to think of it like this. They are two absolutely separate conversations that you don't want to mix in the beginning, right? You're either understanding or you're fixing, and you're not fixing until you're understanding. So the first conversation is staying on understanding and connecting. And that's what I did with that young man. In my mind, someone else might be seeing it and they said, whoa, you didn't fix anything. There was no decisions made. There was no resolution to what's going to happen next. But that mom got it, right? When she said, how did you get him to talk? How did you get him to open up? I didn't even know all that stuff was going on. That was big, right? She said that. I didn't even know that was everything that was going through his mind, right? And I was not under any circumstance in that conversation going to switch to fixing and solving because he needed to let that out. There was no place for him to hear himself talk about how afraid he was and how much, just how hard this was. And he needed to hear that. He needed to get that out and to feel connected. Eventually, we're going to talk about what he needs to do, but that wasn't the conversation for it. I think I'm hammering this point in hard, but it's important that you focus on that type of conversation. Now, it's not just one conversation. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Patience, well, persistence and patience, right? You want to continue to we want to continue the conversation. It's going to be multiple conversations. I feel like parents are often looking, and I understand why, right? Is there one conversation I can have that will just change everything? How do we get to it very quickly? And I discourage that because it's not. And even if one conversation is a breakthrough, like you learn so much and you connect and everyone's feeling hopeful, you still want to have those kind of conversations, right? But most of the time, if your kid is so anxious, so in shame that they're not talking to you, what you do in the beginning isn't going to work like you want it to, right? So you got to measure success in a different way, right? If you're able to have a conversation that is focused on um, just just listening, right, or just being there, or having a better experience, that's a good start, right? And so we're really shifting the when we talk about things, how we talk about things, and the way you talk about things. And the persistence is a message of uh, I hear you, I love you, I care about you, I really do want to understand what's going on. And even if you need to say, I care about you. We don't have to talk about this now. We will eventually, right? That's the persistence. But right now we don't. This is just trying to understand what's going on, right? And so those times where you get a door slammed in your face, or they're deflecting, or they're doing that thing that you're like, oh, I'm getting shut out again, or they're not listening to me. It's that way of a message. And there's so many ways to do this. I don't want to get into all the particulars now, but maybe it's a lot of people, they have to talk through text messages or emails, even if they're in the other room, right? But it's this thing about, we love you. We really care about you. We want to understand what's going on. We want to help you with this. And we're going to continue. We're not going to give up on you. We're not going to give up on helping you. We're always going to be here for you. And it's that message of, it doesn't matter if you slam a door in my face. It doesn't matter if you cuss me out. It doesn't matter if you lie to me. If you do those things, I'm not quitting. Right? I'm not saying you're okay with that behavior, right? But you're not going to let that be a deterrent. It's a very clear message that we do need to talk about this. But what we're going to talk about is not change at the beginning. We're going to talk about what's going on with you, what's happening, right? And you want to stay in that place of just loving persistence, and it's not pressure. That's not the idea that you want to give off. It's more that I'm not giving up, because love is at the heart of that. Your concern, your care for them. So just trying to think of. There's a couple of practical points I want to make. I'm just thinking of the order I want to put them in. Because one of the thoughts that's in my head right now is parents will say, uh, when do we back out of a conversation? When do we back off? Or when do we pivot? And that's a really good point. Because when I say being persistent, you want to be there, not give up on the conversation just because they're getting scared or anxious or giving you some attitude, right? There's times where you got to stick in that conversation and say, no, I really do want to talk about this. I'm not gonna go away just because you're in a bad mood. This is important. I really want to understand what's happening with you. Why are you so overwhelmed? What is happening in these moments when you feel stuck or you don't follow through? Like, what is happening inside of you, right? And I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Get away. And like, no, I'm here. I'm not gonna run from you. I'm not gonna stop caring and trying. And you've got to have that persistence. But then there's times where, and this is what you're looking for, right? They're decompensating, right? Their emotion is so extreme, uncontrolled crying, or they're melting down, and that's a time maybe you completely back away, or you stop talking, and you're just there, right? You're just breathing with them. You're just feeling with them. It's a message of, it's a symbol of, I can be here with your big emotions. It's not going to push me away. I can feel with you. I can breathe with you. And other times, if they're escalating, and that's really the thing, it's not just like they hit this intense emotion and then they're just staying, but it's escalating. Their meltdown is worse. Their explosive anger is getting uh, more explosive, or they maybe risk of getting violent or aggression, punching holes in the walls, things like that. Those are times to, okay, we're not going to talk about this, right? And some of those you just walk away, right? And you're going to come back, not in that moment when things calm down. And other times you give them the message like, hey, I can see you need some space, and I'm going to give you that space, but I'm not going to give up on this. We're going to figure out what's going on. We're going to talk about what's happening. And so you're acknowledging they're overwhelmed, but you're reassuring that you love them and you're there for them. So I'm giving you space, but we are going to come back to this because I care about you. Right? Um, so some other things to think about. I've been talking a lot about patterns, right? Patterns of how the conversations don't go well. And just think about your pattern, whatever it is. Um, it starts with something not being followed through. You guys try to have a conversation. It turns into an argument, or someone runs away and they won't talk to you, or whatever that pattern is. You need to change that pattern. So you want to. Um, it's like the where, maybe, and the where and the when is something that needs to change. You don't want to talk when something is hot and relevant. It's better in a time of peace, right? Maybe you schedule it, maybe you come to them in a completely different time. And it's not like, hey, we need to talk about why you're not doing this. It's more of like, hey, I want to talk about how you are doing. I want to talk about what's happening. Maybe you take them out for some food. Maybe you watch a movie. Maybe um, you're playing a game, or whatever that is. You're doing something different, but that alone doesn't change things if you have the same conversation. If you go right into fixing, okay, I took you out to dinner, and while we're out here, let's talk about why you need to change. It's about what's going on with them. But if you are in a situation where your child isn't even talking to you, or very minimal, the conversation just shuts down very quickly, I would encourage you just to change the experience. And this is okay. You don't have to fix anything, and you don't have to get them to open up, and you don't even have to talk about the big emotions in the beginning. Just doing something different, like, let's just watch a movie. We're not going to talk about anything, and I get it. They don't want to, right? And they're going to say no. They're going to turn that down. Right? I can hear what you're saying already. Like, they're not even going to do that with me. That's the persistence, right? And the patience, right? They need to see, like, no, really, I just want to spend time with you. I just want to sit here for a moment and play a game, or talk about this thing, or maybe we can go out and grab a burger, or let's watch a show together, or tell me about your friend, or tell me about the game you're playing, or tell me about, and it's not a loaded question, it's not judgment. Watch your nonverbals. See, I'm getting into specifics, but I know a lot of parents, you have these nonverbals, and ask someone else maybe if they know what these are. It's like where you roll your eyes, or you have that smirk. It's like, you're listening to them talk about their game, or what they were doing last night, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is how you're spending your time, right? It's not what you're saying, but it's what it looks like, right? It looks like you're approving, disappointed, annoyed, whatever it is. Be careful with that, right? This is just very neutral. I just want to hear about things. I just want to spend some time with you and talk, because some of that is a test. Some of that is, what, I'm going to say this thing in a way that I know is going to piss you off, and then you're going to make that comment, and then we're going to get in this same pattern, and I can just know that you really don't care. Right? So you gotta fight that, and really hone in on, this is your kid. You love them, and they are struggling, right? And you need to connect first. So if you were telling me that you, for the first, so however long, all you did was, watch movies, or talk about something you're completely not interested in, but you were having more points of connection, I'd say, great, you're doing what you need to do. Build that connection, and then get into, hey, what's really going on for you? Look for those opportunities to talk about what's on their heart, what's on their mind, how they're feeling about things. Um, and yeah, and then you're better set to talk about change. The other, oh, there's so many points. There's so many points with this. But yeah, I'll go ahead and make this one too. Sometimes, well, I made it a little bit before, but sometimes your child will push change themselves. And if they're talking about making a change and they haven't talked about why the other things haven't worked, and I'm not talking about shame, I'm not talking about blame, I'm talking about, objectively, like, okay, this is where I got too anxious, or this is where, this is why I backed down, or this is why I did this, or this is, if there isn't some connection around what was going on, uh, it's probably not going to be successful. It's the your child's version of trying to ignore all the emotion, all the anxiety, all the problem, and let's just give it one more good try. And it's easy to get pulled into that direction, but if they don't succeed, which if they haven't been succeeding, they're probably not because they don't know why they weren't succeeding. They haven't really addressed with it. It's going to be another failure, right? It's going to be another moment. And that's going to be another time that they promised you they were going to do something and they weren't able to do it. And now there's this tension between the two of you, right? And I don't want to talk about this again because it falls apart. So there's times as a parent when you need to say, hey, we can talk about your goals, your change, all that later. I want to know about you. Right? I want to know about how you're feeling. What are your goals? What are your hopes? Where does it work? Where does it not? What's happening with you? And you're not going to know everything. They're their own person. They're a young adult. They don't want to tell you everything. That's okay. You want them to know that you're willing to hear it, that you're willing to be there, that you're willing to connect with them, that you care that much, right? It's not that you know everything, it's the connection, right? You're connected. And that changes the whole dynamic. All right, so let's review, recap, if you will, what we've been talking about. So, your child is not talking to you. Right? We want to change the when, the where, and the how. Right? We want to focus on conversations that connect with their emotional experience. What are they feeling? What are they experiencing? And really understand what's happening. We want to change the pattern. We're not going to do it the same way we did before. We're going to mix it up. We're going to spend time with them. We're going to do something different than maybe just going straight in. And we're certainly not going to have these conversations when everyone's worked up, whether that's everyone's worried, everyone's angry, everyone's frustrated. That's not the time to have conversations. It's when you want to, because we want to fix this. No, you're gonna come at it in a different place, in a different way, and you're gonna be persistent. Right? You're gonna be persistent. You're gonna give them the message of they are so important that you are not going to give up. You are going to continue to talk with them. And when they try to push away, you're going to have that staying power of, I love you and I care about you and I can see you're struggling. I'm not going to back off because I know you're struggling and I care about you. But let's talk about that struggle, right? And yes, you'll back off when it gets too heated and it's not productive anymore, but then you're going to come back in a different way, in a different time. But focus on connecting with them and you're rebuilding trust. What kind of trust? You're rebuilding trust in my parents really do care about me. They really are trying to help me out. You're rebuilding trust within your child where they believe that someone really does care, right? That they're starting to, maybe I can try again. Maybe I am supported. We are on the same page. You're building connection, trust and connection all around. And, and that belief is so important. The kind of trust for a young adult that my parents really do believe in me. They really do believe that I can do this. They trust in my decision making. They trust in who I am and where I'm going. And basically, they trust that one way or another, I can figure this out. I can be successful. I can move forward. They want to feel that level of trust from you. And then you move to working on the goals, right? And those are, yes, that's where your boundaries come in. That's where they need those limits. They need those targets. They need to know about where their good choices go, where their poor choices go, all those kind of conversations. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. That is a different part. That's part two, three down the road that we will talk about. Which is, and we've talked about it in the past. There's some videos on there if you want to look back through the library, but setting boundaries and setting goals and following through and all that. But tonight was about rebuilding connection, especially when they won't talk to you. Now, I know anyone who is watching this, you have specific questions to your situation, and that is fair, right? It's we're talking some specific things, but not as specific to your situation. Um, that's why I want to hear your comments, your questions, your scenarios. If you feel safe enough, and I hope you do, you can share that within the group. I read that stuff, and I will respond. And many times, just like tonight, how many parents have said, "My kid won't talk to me"? So that's what we talked about in this group. Um, so you can put your specific questions if you want to share your situation. And eventually, uh, I am going to be doing some more specific, I guess you can call it like step by step trainings like I do in person, but working to do that more in an online forum. Really, I'm just trying to get a better sense of what this group needs, what the members need, and what we're going to focus on in training. So keep looking for that. It's coming, and we're going to provide more of that support. All right. So let me know your questions. Something you resonated with you, something you didn't understand, something you didn't agree with. I can take it. In fact, that helps. That helps shape where we're going and what we're doing. So thank you for listening. And I want to end with this: your connection with your adult child can be rebuilt. I've seen it over and over and over. Such seemingly hopeless situations, that connection can be rebuilt. That trust can be restored. That connection and that consistency is what gets you there. It's not perfect words. It's not getting it right all the time. It's the fact that you continue to care, you continue to try, and if you're watching this, you care enough to learn. And there are things you can learn. There's ways you can grow. Don't quit. Don't quit. Your family is worth it. Your kids worth it. You're worth it. It's worth your effort, and change can and will happen.